The following video is speculation about Star Citizen, currently in Alpha 3.17.2. What will science look like in Star Citizen? First, we'll need to determine what sciences Star Citizen will be using, as there's been very little information released about it. Let's see what we can extrapolate from the ships we know about. In very broad terms, the ships in Star Citizen can be broken down into a few types. Obviously, there are combat ships, transport ships, mining ships. You get the picture. But there are a few that have either multiple roles or specialty roles, and these are the ships we'll be looking at now. I've grouped them into three types. Materials. Ships like the Orion, the Expanse, the Starfarer. They all refine one thing into another. Either a usable or at least a more profitable version of something. While technically all part of the mining gameplay loop, refining has its place in science. Purifying something collected in-game, often a mineral, into something else. We would expect a similar process to be done with other harvestables found around the verse, like what we would collect with our next category. Exploration. The Carrack, the Odyssey 315P, the Aquila 600I, the Corsair, all exploration ships. These are the rough and tumble, or at least the more adventurous approach to science. They are meant to go out and find new things, go new places. Great for collecting those samples and data for use in our final category of ships. Research, or true science ships. The Endeavor and the Reliant Sen. So far, the only two true science ships we know about. And we do know very little about them. But let's see what we can figure out. The Reliant Sen should be able to scan and identify various signals through its enhanced sensor suite, perhaps giving a detailed view of an area instead of a broad overview that you would get with the standard sensors. Maybe used for mapping on a smaller scale, or if CIG decides to do so, make it a jump point module that can equip into the size 4s on the wings, allowing it to explore and map a jump point very similar to the way the Carrack can, just on a much smaller scale, a much shorter range. And lastly, we have the Endeavor, the big boy of science. With its detachable forward section, the Endeavor is the only ship we'll need to fully explore an area. Along with its selection of modules, it's your one-stop shop for science gameplay. The modules may even point to what CIG is thinking about when it comes to future science gameplay. We of course have the biodomes of the Olympic class, capable of growing food or medicinal plants, your go-to space farm. Next we have the medical facility and landing bays of the Hope class, your mobile hospital ship. We also have the general science and research pods of the Discovery class. It's your mobile laboratory. These two are particularly interesting. Let's take a look at them. First, the science pods. From CIG, these are designed for analytical, data gathering, and house a variety of scientific computers and databanks, mainly used for turning the raw information gathered by the general research pods or the telescope array. It can also be used for getting raw data from elsewhere in the verse. This is interesting, as the science pod seems to be more like a storage and sorting or sifting system used to comb through the data we give it. Data on planets, biomes, plants, animals, whichever you would have, and then selling that off to interested parties. Next, we have the research pod. From CIG, this is intended as a multi-use facility that can support a variety of active research pursuits like biological studies, microscopy, zero-gravity experiments, etc. It houses internal slots for precision scanners, sample and specimen collections, spectrometers, and chemical analyzers. It is capable of cataloging new experimental data as well as producing cutting-edge compounds. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. So from this description, we get a couple things. The precision scanners and sample and specimen collections. These will likely be the various tasks we, or our crew, will work on. Scanning that nearly perfect Hadesian artifact, hoping to find more about the lost civilization, collecting and analyzing soil, air, water, and plant matter from this newly discovered world, perhaps even bringing back some of the local fauna for study. And the next part, spectrometers and chemical analyzers. These could be a second layer game loop that comes after the scanning and collection of samples. These I could see being used both in the field and in the labs. In the lab, we could see things like centrifuges, digital microscopes, anything we can use to see what makes up the samples we've collected. Hand or probe scanning in the field would allow you to find interesting things to take back for further study. But it won't give you that much detail. Oh, this is totally normal, boring dirt. Just leave it alone. Don't bother to collect it. But this rock is interesting. I would imagine some options like the current refining process for all of these, balancing detail or accuracy of readings to time and energy put in. The final two modules on the Endeavour are much more interesting. The telescope array, like with the recent James Webb Telescope, will be able to view very distant objects and get great detail about them. When coupled with the research pod, probably being able to provide readings on the planet without actually having to travel there. Or you'll be able to track down a new jump point entrance, perhaps one that is unstable but would allow for rapid transit to another system. Maybe a connection that wasn't previously known about, one far from the prying eyes of the UE. This would be a particular advantage to the local smuggler group, who would pay well for its location. And lastly, the big ring, the overclocking master, the super collider. From CIG, this is an elaborate overclocking facility. It includes a pair of white room workbench labs ideal for tweaking and overclocking ship components like weapons or thrusters, pushing them to their theoretical limits. This clearly has some advantages. Tweaking, tuning, overclocking, modding. All of this is just a simple way to make our ships more personal. A boost to thrusters here, upgraded capacitor there, tweaking a power plant to produce more power, allowing more power to go to each system, or enhanced capacitors, allowing for more shots from your energy weapons, overclocking the thrusters of your daily driver, just giving that little edge in agility, or that higher top SCM speed, just a little something extra. What I would like to see in this game loop is modding components of those systems. Replace the stock capacitor with one that holds twice the charge, but recharges slower. Replace the laser emitters with ones made from a synthetic compound you discovered in Pyro, something that's high energy. Making shots deal 20% more damage, but generates much more heat per shot. Shields that absorb 5 to 15% of incoming energy damage, which in turn recharges the shields, absorbent shields. But it would, of course, have the trade-off of lowering your overall shield strength. Anything that allows for personal choice in our ships. This, of course, depends on how much CIG decides to do with these options. And I'm sure they won't be anything massively overpowered, just something of a give and take for various stats. How much of this will be in-game, I don't know. This is simple speculation. But it certainly shines a light on one of the lesser-known gameplay loops CIG is planning.